of Darkness series from Darker Days Radio. I'm going to bring up my show notes so I actually have the typical spiel. So yes, Signal Black is a Darker Days series that's introducing and exploring the numerous Chronicles of Darkness 2nd edition settings currently developed by Onyx Path Publishing. In this series, we, the host of Darker Days Radio, alongside when we do get things scheduling works out, we'll get some of the Onyx Path writers who have written for the relevant game we're talking about or related to it or have played enough of them anyway. We'll discuss the settings and basic mechanics of each game and highlight the type of characters you can play and explore the role-playing experiences each game provides. And of course, today we are going to be talking about Mage the Awakening. Might be thinking, why aren't you doing Werewolf? Well, again, scheduling issues mean that Werewolf got pushed back to hopefully it's going to be next month, but we're doing Mage today. So, yes, I'm Chris, one of the regular hosts of Darker Days Radio, and obviously I've written for Chronicles of Darkness in the form of writing for Changeling the Lost 2nd edition. And we are joined by Chigg. How's it going, Chigg? Or Bryce, as it is on the thing, Chigg. What are you up to, Chigg? How's things going?
Oh, same old same. Work, work, work. Game, game, game.
Work, work, work. Game, game, game. Yeah, I know that feeling. And we're joined by Crystal again. How's it going, Crystal?
Hello, it's going. I am on spring break.
You're on spring break.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound as exciting as spring break seems in the movies.
No, because we're supposed to have snow and rain in Wisconsin over like the entire week. So
wait. Are you mean you're not going to the beach and in your bikini and having wild, crazy parties at the frat house or something? Come on.
I mean, my closest beach is Lake Michigan, and if you've ever seen any of the Great Lakes in the winter,
yeah, you can just
you're not going on there. There was an ice floe that actually pushed up into and destroyed 3 homes on the shores of Lake Michigan this week. So wow. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So you could walk across it. Nice.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, it's been warm here in Sheffield. It's warm for spring, too warm, unusually warm I would feel, but it's been good because I've been able to do my patio. I'm knackered from scraping paint and then painting it again. It's and chucking stuff out of my basement and everything. I'm really going to town on getting things done up in this house finally. Yeah, and hobby stuff as well. I've got too many different things to write right now, and I'm under so many different NDAs. It's a bit fun. But enough of that. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about, will it work? Yeah, Mage the Awakening 2nd edition. This is the POD version. I wish I had a trad print of this, like the classic 1st edition, because it had a really kind of like pearlescent feel to it. But yes, Mage. Who wants to do the 5-minute pitch of what Mage the Awakening is? Shall I try it? I'll try it. Okay.
Go.
Go for it. If you want to try, Chigg.
I mean, I can try.
Go on.
Mage the Awakening. I can't even say the word. Mage the Awakening is a game about reclaiming humanity's birthright to magic. Humanity lives in our world, the world of darkness, the fallen realm, and they are cut off from the supernal realm, the realm that magic emanates from. Mage the Awakening is a game about reshaping the world to your whims, but there's always the danger of hubris. So you want to reclaim your birthright, you want to get your power back that was taken from you, but if you push too hard, if you push too far, it could turn around and slap you back down. That's what Mage the Awakening is about.
Yeah, I think that sums up quite a lot very succinctly. I mean, the tagline is, Mage is a storytelling game of modern sorcery, which makes sense. It is a game about where the world is a lie. And, we're going to make some nods to the elephant in the room, which is, of course, Mage the Ascension, which doesn't yet have a 5th edition. And I think it's actually interesting we'll do some nods to it because, of course, I'll be curious about how much of Mage the Awakening gets ported into Mage the Ascension.
I would be shocked if Paradox Dice didn't make the jump wholesale.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, okay, so let's get into that a bit more. So, again, much like Mage the Ascension then, what do mages do? How is their magic different to, say, how we would think of magic in other, you know, urban fantasy, modern horror settings. Crystal, do you want to go for that one? You can mostly answer it pretty easily.
So the way that I think about it is that it's almost like they're plucking out like little teeny tiny threads of magic from where they came from, and if you're not careful, it's like a rubber band and it'll snap you. You can pull so much so far, and you can kind of try to thread them together as much as possible to create a longer line. But it's always a risk, like with rubber bands, and the more magic you want to pull through, the bigger the rubber band is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I always think of rubber bands as being incredibly risky, so I like that analogy.
and yeah, so magic is a dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, if we're going to compare, and I used to play a lot of Mage Ascension back in the day, I would say by comparison, I'm going to say people may disagree. I think Mage the Awakening wants you to do magic, whereas Mage the Ascension, I always feel like, oh, you can do magic, but it was always really hard to do so. And I think that's just because Mage the Awakening has a different. I obviously learned from the previous iteration of Mage, and so was like, let's get people to do more magic. And of course, like Mage Ascension, magic is not just like setting stone spells. We're not talking like a D&D list of exhaustive amounts of spells and they are all you can do, and the only things you can do, unless your GM lets you, design some new spells to put into the game. The whole point about Mage is creative magic. So it's just, you've just got different flavors, energies, essentially, of magic that you are spinning together because you have a soul that is open up to this supernal realm, essentially, and you can spin together any type of spell you can envision. The limitation is essentially your imagination and what things you have control of, and if you are doing enough to mitigate paradox and the fact that the fallen world doesn't like certain types of magic. I guess that gets us into, then the other thing to say is that the magic of mages is quite different to like the magical abilities of other things in this world of darkness. We'll say that Chronicles of Darkness portrays a world of darkness. Other creatures' magic are kind of like baked into the world, like they're part of the world, part of the cage. We'll get into that. Whereas mages are really trying to do something different and break the rules. So what can we play? Who wants to go for these? Who wants to just give us a rundown of what we can play?
Okay, I'll bite. So it's a Chronicle of Darkness game. So it has the standard 3 axes. It has your path or tower that you awaken to, which determines the 2 arcana that you are primarily attuned to. You can use any of them, but these are the ones that you were especially good at. One is the ruling arcana and one is the inferior arcana, but that's okay because we love all arcana the same. The second axis is the order to which you belong to, which is a kind of a political group, but it's also your philosophy of what magic is. It's the nearest correspondence in the Ascension would have been your tradition, but it's really not a tradition because, well, not
they're
a tradition.
Much broader than traditions.
They're much broader than traditions were when this was written, but traditions have become much broader since this was written. So make of that what you will. And finally, the third axis is your legacy, which is like a bloodline if you're a vampire. It's kind of a little way that you can specialize your character and your magic and what you do.
Yeah.
And those are the 3 things that make a mage. I'm good at lists today.
Yeah. So what happens then with a path is that you through circumstances, and they can be varied, realize the world is a lie, and you begin to see, I guess, the within the fallen world, you see how the supernal realms kind of are reflected, how they're woven together to create the tapestry of reality. and that leads you on a journey. Oh, it can be a physical journey, or it could be a journey into your soul. I can't quite remember actually in the book, but it depends upon the person. It can be a very dreamlike experience. It could be a waking dream, but essentially you are drawn across the abyss to the watchtower that is tied to the path that you're going to align to. And essentially there you are drawn into that supernal realm, and you write your true name upon the tower, and that's what gives you your power. But basically, that's what creates the conduit, which allows you to draw magic down into the fallen realm. And as I said, there's 5 of these paths, each to a tower. Let's start going through them and have a bit of discussion of what each one is like. So we've got Acanthus, which again, so unlike Mage the Ascension, I would say these are broader and more archetypes. And so when we say witch and enchanter, we're not saying with the Acanthus, they are Wiccans. They are Celtic kind of wizards and enchanters in that sense. We're talking witches and enchanters in more in an archetype thematically. And
I mean, they can be cackling old ladies with a cauldron, but I mean that they can also be people who are, making homebrew or whatever.
Yeah. And so Acanthus, they are tied to the supernal realm of Arcadia, which is an important distinction to make from the Arcadia we know in Changeling the Lost, which I believe is meant to be a fallen reflection of the supernal realm. And from there, they draw the power of the arcanas, which are fate and time. So, time is obviously manipulation of time, forward, backwards, into the future, into the past, scrying into the future, rewinding things for a brief split second, or moving through time at different rates. Whereas fate is more, you are fated to do this thing, or altering people's fate, or again seeing how people are connected. So there's connections. And so the Watchtower is that of the Lunagent Thorn. Any other points you want to raise on Acanthus, or what's kind of cool about them?
So you mentioned that they're witches, and I want to touch on that for a minute. They can get power by making deals and bargains with fate, with what they think of as fey beings. Not the Changeling the Lost Fae. Those are different guys, and they don't do well with them. But they can seek out and make bargains that they have. They can get this magical ability, and all they have to do is go put a quarter in this phone booth at 2:00 in the morning on next Thursday. Why? Who knows? Because that's what the Fae want. It's part of some bigger overarching plot that you don't really know, but you made this bargain, and now you're gonna have to be at this alley at 2:00 in the morning next Thursday to put a quarter in the phone booth. So I really like that about them. It just the whole having things that you have to do because you made these deals with these strange extra reality creatures is that is a fantastic idea for a whole entire chronicle. We'll get to that in a little while.
Sure. So Mastigos are warlocks and psychonauts, so they have command over mind and space. So obviously with space, that means you can create portals across space, jump from one point of the world to the other. You can manipulate space, so you can create little pockets of it which can't be easily detected. Or you can do stupid Doctor Who like stuff. The inside of the shed is bigger than the outside, that type of thing. It allows
it's also good for scrying.
Good for scrying, scrying across, rather than just scrying across time, scrying across space to other locations.
I always think of them as like the Carmen Sandiego of mages.
Space is also, in a sense, about connections of things, again, but more in how you could think of it more in the case of whereas fate is connected by destiny and a Gaius and so forth. I would say space is the connection of I would say kind of more in a raw kind of information kind of sense, like, because where things occupy in space is really governed by rules. And then mind is kind of like the fact that our experience of space and also time is mediated by how we experience it in our head. Like, we have to build in our mind where things are and where they're placed. So space could be considered an illusion of the mind, hence why mind is the ruling arcana over it. And of course, with mind, you can do all the other things you expect with mind, like, remove memories, fabricate dreams, and delve into people's minds and explore them, hence psychonauts.
And you can also just sense emotions. It doesn't all have
Yes.
to be horrible stuff.
Oh no, it doesn't have to be horrible stuff.
It doesn't have to be magical gaslighting, Chris. Gosh, calm down.
You obviously, it's tied to the realm of Pandemonia, which is the supernal realm of demons, and the Watchtower of the Iron Gauntlet. So when we say demons, though, it's more about your inner demons in the sense. So a Masagos is seeking to better themselves through trial and tribulation. So it's mind over matter in that sense. And yeah, I think they're my favourite of the paths. Because obviously it relates to the classic kind of what are they called? Why can't I think of them? From classic Mage.
Order of Hermes?
No.
Not Euthantho.
The computer guys.
Oh, virtual adepts.
Oh,
Virtual adepts were doing all that because they were space and correspondence and connections of things.
See, because when I read them, I thought immediately of John Constantine from DC Comics.
Definitely, but I think you can, again, it just shows how much scope there is within by taking those arcana and what you can do with them, and filtered through, and we'll get to that, the orders and legacies. You can really create any kind of mage you really want to play. Obviously, because they deal with mind and inner demons, that means they have quite a good connection to the Gotia, which are the demons of your soul within the inner soul, and drawing them forth and overcoming them to obviously improve and shape your soul. Any other comments on Masagos? Okay, and then
I'm good.
Got Moros, which are alchemists and necromancers. They have command of death and matter. So again, matter is inert substance. Death is about transition from life into inert matter. Their realm is Stygia, the supernal realm of Stygia, which again is different to the underworld, and the Tower of the Lead Coin. Any thoughts or opinions on the Moros?
I thought these guys were just the most obvious of all 5 of the paths.
Yes.
They deal with death. They deal with dead things.
Right.
It says right there on the tin. That
yeah.
These are probably my favorite, but I love dealing anything with alchemy and necromancy. Like, those two are some of my favorite magics to play around with.
As alchemists, they have a good crossover, and we'll talk about crossovers because, I mean, we've already mentioned demons at one point. We've mentioned Fae. Moros have an automatic, obvious crossover with Prometheans due to being alchemists, or Geist due to being necromancers. We've got Obramos, which are thaumaturges and theurgists. They have control over prime and forces. So forces obviously is things like light, sound, energy, electrical energy, lightning bolts, or the removal of those things. So darkness is the lack of light. But weirdly, I think darkness can also be manipulated by death. So there's a little bit of weirdness there. And prime is the very raw energy of magic, and also the creation of illusions, like fabricating magical constructs. So I think that also gets you over into some sort of element of illusions, doesn't it?
Right.
Their supernal realm is the ether, which is the realm of angels and beings similar to that, and the Tower of the Golden Key. I mean, they're pretty much your hermetic mage in that sense, throwing around fireballs. Very. I'm not going to mention the other magical media right now because it should be chucked in the trash fire because of a certain writer. So, but I think they're also overall quite you can look at them and go, oh, that's what I'm going to play. You can also, as I said, theurgists, so they're the idea of the person calling upon a higher power to bring down magical smiting upon someone. Any other thoughts on the Omos? What we like about them?
I like that they're, and I come from all this stuff through the first read through. They're a good middle ground between the Celestial Chorus and the Order of Hermes.
Yeah.
So they deal with the angels and the higher realms. They can call down angels and they can talk to them. They can ask them for favors, or they can just say no. Turns out I'm in charge here, and you're going to go ahead and light that dude's head on fire. Thanks.
Yeah.
But it's a nice little it's a broad spectrum of mage there.
Yes. And then finally we've got Thyrsus, which are the shamans and ecstatics, so they're spirit and life, life being, living things that. So again, when we talk about all these arcana, life is good at manipulating, how can we say, things
that are alive?
Things that are alive but not human, because human within the metaphysics of the setting, humans are differentiated because of the nature of their soul. So animals, plants, and bacteria, they don't have souls that can tap into all these different energies, and so they fall under primarily life. Whereas if you want to manipulate humans, you're going to need life plus also mix in some other things to start creating a human from scratch. And spirit is, of course, the idea that creatures and things have reflections in the spirit realm, and so it's that animistic kind of idea. So if you see a car in the spirit realm, its spirit is this bloated thing that enjoys, it's kind of like a panther, but it's got like a body of chrome and metal, and it's got red spots, and it, its fangs are dripping oil, and it loves just chasing things down on the reflection of the highways. And they're the Tower of the Singing Stone. Again, I think there's a lot you can do with that. Going with the ecstatics, you can go with, I guess, mages who are all about drugs and psychedelics and rock and roll, and trying to push yourself to experience the world on a different plane. And again, shamans, that's there's so many different interpretations. We're not just talking about Native American shamans. We're not, shamanistic traditions are diverse. And I think the important thing to note with all of these is they are not tied at all to any particular real world magical group or ethnicity or anything. So there is no like, oh, you're not Western culture, so clearly you're magical because of your beliefs. There's none of that. These are all archetypes of magic interpreted, because the magic that you perform as a mage in Mage the Awakening comes from something beyond our world and before our world became fallen. Any other comments on the paths before we carry on?
Nope.
No.
I think there might be there's meant to be in some of the books, there's mention of further watchtowers, and maybe an abyssal watchtower. I can't remember that. Some of that might be first edition and some of it might be second edition, but there's definitely there's a lot of scope with these, and the watchtowers are all tied to, I want to call them, at least in first edition, they're tied to guardians. They were kind of erected as the world became fallen. These were created in the supernal realm to guide humanity back to magic. Because we've been cut off from it by nefarious groups, which we will get into now, because we're going to talk about the orders. So, as Chigg said, these are the political and philosophical groups. Would someone like to dive through these ones then?
Sure. After you, Crystal. Ladies
we
first.
can share. How's that?
Okay, good deal.
All right. So the adamantian arrow is life is pain and tribulation. They are always trying to improve themselves through their failures. They try to kind of emerge better. It's almost like I'm gonna compare it to like the Bahari, where they're always trying to experience everything in life, including the bad things, in order to make themselves better and more knowledgeable about their own magics. And honor and service is that.
Yeah, they're yeah.
Like,
I put that down because like they see enlightenment is honor, so that they in the book it says a warrior soul that expresses her intentions, then accomplishes those specific aims, reveals a vision unimpeded by distractions and the uncompromised and uncompromised by the fallen world. Challenges are more worthy than the challenger, restricts his options. Honorable mages act in accordance with their ideals in true harmony with their perfect selves. So I think it's all about they're the ones which, as you say, it's being true to yourself and pushing yourself to your limits.
Right.
Because
It's trying. You have to push
Yeah.
yourself to and beyond your limits so that you can improve. So to find a way to improve, you have to find your limits and then overcome those limits. Which, I mean, okay, sure, that's one philosophy. Absolutely not my philosophy. Hey, you do you, adamantine arrow. Love you. You're out there. You're kicking butt. You're taking names. Appreciate you being out there.
yeah. So yeah, they kind of see themselves as trying to grow through their failures, and trying to figure out where exactly their limits are, pushing that limit and continuing to grow in their magic until it blows up in their face.
They're also the more militant group out of all of the pentacle orders, so their rotes are much more, I don't want to say violent, but they're about defense and offense. They're about,
more martial.
They're definitely more martial. They're
not necessarily more violent.
Yeah, and they're definitely out to take the war for reality to the very doorsteps of the Seers of the Throne and other enemies, and there are plenty. I mean, I like them because, again, essentially you can, from Classic Mage, you could definitely play an Akashic Brotherhood type mage. They definitely fit into that kind of scope. But you could quite easily play like an Obramos kind of like Knights Templar type mage who is in service to a higher ideal, because we should not be selfish. Or you could play
okay, hear me out. Here's my idea for an adamantine arrow. He's a Thyrsus who is an ecstatic, and he's all about eating hotter and spicier foods to push his limits.
Interesting.
I mean,
there's nothing in the rules that say you can't do it that way. The dog can play basketball.
It could work. Like it could definitely work. I'm not sure how all the other arrows would think about that one, but
Hey
man, this is my path, not yours.
Okay, so they're definitely about the martial use of magic, and that life is war and war is life, that kind of ideal. Whereas the Guardians of the Veil are
the second worst of the orders.
They're behind the Seers of the Throne.
Yes.
Yeah, they are pretty much they are a bunch of bastards, I feel.
The Guardians of the Veil are assholes.
They are assholes. But they want to keep magic a secret because they feel every time paradox occurs, the abyss widens, and so we're cut off from magic further. So they want to get people to awaken in a very controlled manner, and they police magical society, and they form mystery cults to test people. They've got a whole host of these different masks in their kind of like culture that are used as part of their mystery cults, as part of the indoctrination. Yeah.
So you know how the Illuminati rule the world and they control the Shriners and the Boy Scouts and everything? This is where that comes from in the Chronicles of Darkness.
Yeah.
These are the magical masters that rule the world for really reals, except not really. But they're the ones who are trying to weed out the chaff and just take the wheat.
Yeah.
They're elitists. They're bastards.
They're a meritocracy, that's for certain.
They claim to be a meritocracy, yes.
It also says one of the headings of one of their like philosophies is sins for a just end grant wisdom. Mages hone wisdom by effecting compassionate acts, but guardians lie and kill, sacrificing their own integrity to safeguard the enlightenment. So I guess they see themselves as like, we're doing the shitty tasks that no one else wants to do for the benefit of the greater good.
That nobody asks them to do. They're just assholes.
Oh, man.
In fact, I think maybe they might be worse than the Seers of the Throne.
Wow, that's a hot take. This is definitely why we need to play a game of Mage then.
Okay, hold on. Look, I'm going to skip to the end. The Seers of the Throne are the bad guys in this setting. You don't play as a Seer of the Throne. They're the willing servants of the Exarchs. The Exarchs are the people, or the beings who live in the supernal realm and want to keep all that magical power for themselves. Seers of the Throne are their faction here on Earth, right? Okay, so the Seers of the Throne are willingly keeping people out. The Guardians of the Veil are doing the same thing. They're just saying, we have a good reason for it. No, you're just assholes.
I mean, it's a hard thing, isn't it? Because it's you've got this incredibly powerful thing, and you want everyone to be awakened, but you know the dangers of if everyone awakened at the same time, it'd be absolute chaos and could potentially cause the abyss to just go catastrophic and consume the world. That's the danger. So it's almost like it's a very fine line of guiding people, but also,
or you could have 7 billion people to go kick the Exarchs right out of the supernal realms, and who cares about the fallen world?
That's true.
It's a lie.
I think it's definitely a difficult balance, and mostly why it'd be really fun to explore. Why it's fun to explore in the game. Yeah, I could play Guardian of the Veil. Yeah, that'd be fun.
It is definitely the same dudes that just are in both of them, where you're like, no, I'm doing it for the right reasons, but they're all the wrong reasons.
So next up, we have the best faction, the best order, is the Mysterium.
Of course you would.
Yeah. They seek out mysteries and lost secrets to protect it from mundane society and those who would destroy it. So this is like Indiana Jones, except for not, putting it in a museum somewhere.
Yeah, and you can play that Indiana Jones type scenarios because there are numerous things that don't belong to the fallen world and don't obey carbon dating. So you could go like, there's this ancient temple that's been discovered that you get to through a tunnel that's in the middle of London, and you go down it and you're suddenly in this cavern, and it's not a cavern, and you're actually in a part of the world, or a pocket of the world, where you're now high up in the mountains that's similar to the Himalayas and some ancient temple. So you can do that kind of gallivanting around the world, kind of searching for lost magic and
these are the fun
relics.
Ones.
Oh, they're definitely fun. Yeah,
these are the guys who are there for the adventure and for the excitement, and you want to go over there and have life is pain and horrible, and I want to keep you out of my fun clubhouse. That's great. You go play those dudes. I want to be the guy who goes out with a whip and fights Nazis at the center of the earth and uncovers, the magical crystal of the ancients.
And by Nazis in this case, do you mean Seers of the Throne, or do you mean Guardians of the Veil?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean both potatoes and potatoes.
Yes. Okay, moving on. I'm realizing that we are running out of time rapidly.
Sorry.
It's okay. The Silver Ladder. They are. Go on.
These guys are my favorite.
Really?
Tell us about them, Crystal.
Yeah, because they want to let every human reach their actual potential, for magics, and try to make the world better from the damage that was done by the Exarchs. And yeah, I personally do resonate with that whole mentality of every individual should be given the ability to try to reach their own potential, whatever that is, but they should have that ability.
Yeah.
Agreed. They're the second good one.
I would say, and the thing is, with the Silver Ladder, you've got Adamantium Arrow, Guardians of Vale, and Mysterium. They make up the diamond of orders, the 4 original orders, and they, in their history, they don't all date all the way back to before the Fallen World. They all try to emulate and gather lore and understanding of ancient pre-Fallen traditions that they kind of align to them slightly. So, which is a change to, I think first edition was a bit more like, oh, they are those groups from the ancient past, whereas this is more like they're not quite. Some are older. Some of these orders are older than another one, or they may have split at a certain point, and so that's why you've got. Or I think there may even be orders that don't exist that did exist, that type of thing, like kind of like in with covenants in Vampire. But adjoining them is the more recent order, which is the Free Council, which is my favourite one.
The wheel spinners. Tell us about them, Chris.
So essentially, the Fallen World is a cage reality created by the Exarchs, and I guess the idea is that the Exarchs thought, okay, we've made this cage, and you can't. There is no way humans can do magic, but essentially, the Free Council finds the symbolism in the Fallen World to still do magic and draw it out through the cage itself. So they will use, I would say, where the other orders may use techniques and tools which look distinctly magical. The Free Council can hide their magic through modern day ideas, apparatus, tools, etc. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, they absolutely they really fucking hate the Seers of the Throne. They almost got recruited to become part of the Seers of the Throne, and they basically went no, because they were originally called the Nameless Order. There was a whole, not coup, but they went ballistic on them, and it was all out war. They definitely hate the lie. They hate the cage for what it is, but are using it against the Seers of the Throne. They're definitely also more democratic, or at least idealistically trying to be more of a democratic approach to magic. So I guess go against the Guardians, the Veil, and the Silver Ladder to a certain extent. Yeah, so in different ways they are opposed to elements of the other orders, but they also side with the Diamond because the Seers of the Throne are complete bastards, which is the truth of the matter. So that's the orders. Obviously, we said the Seers of the Throne. They do horrible things as well. Like they are further split into groups based upon which exarch they follow, and they've got horrible tools. Which was it the Profane Aurum? Is it Profane something or other? Which allows them to essentially, if they've marked certain people, they can do possession from a distance wearing these robes. So they can be quite scary as an antagonist. Like, you don't know, so this regular Joe walking the street is actually a member of the Seers of the Throne watching you. So that's quite terrifying. And as we said, legacies are essentially
further refinements of your order. If you want to be a Mysterium who goes out and Indiana's some Joneses, goes out with his whip and fights Nazis and stuff, that's one legacy. If you want to be the one who works in the lab and figures out what this magical glowing rock that the Indiana Jones guy brought back actually does, or how it fits into the furthering the mysteries and finding out more about the supernal realm, that's a different legacy. And all of the orders have little legacies like that are specializations.
And I would say legacies are a good place where if you want to have have a group that seems like a real world kind of magic society that's tied to a particular region of the world, a particular philosophy or history, legacies are where I would tap into that. And legacies have some cool benefits called like attainments, so they can internalize certain spells, so they essentially don't cause paradox, do they?
Right, they're just things that you can do because you've practiced it enough and made it
and your
part of
soul.
yourself.
It's part of your soul, essentially. Yeah. So I really like how legacies work in this game. What can we do then? Who wants to talk about how magic works in this game? I mean, Crystal, you've run it at demos. So tell us about how magic works in this game.
Magic. So one of the cool things about this game and the book actually is that if you go to the table of contents, all of the magic is actually like outlined in its dot form and easy to find, like super quick to turn to, so you're not like flipping through everything trying to find it. A lot of the spells and stuff like that are written in such a way that they are interpreted depending upon the character. So you can take these spells and kind of customize them to how your character would work them, versus you have just a set number of spells. And each dot has a whole listing of spells that you can do. And it's not anything that you're prepared. It's if you have that dot, you have access to those spells. So it's a lot more open than what a lot of other things are.
Yeah.
Well, it's more open than some other RPGs. I want to go ahead and point out that unlike some other games that were also named Mage, the effects for each of the Arcanum are fairly uniform. So if you have one dot in an Arcanum, that will let you compel, know, and unveil the things that fall within that Arcanum. So if you have one dot of, say, life, you can know how many cats are in this building. You just know. If you have one dot of matter, you can know that that one in the middle, that's the real diamond. The two on the outside, cubic zirconium. And it's like that from level 1 to level 5.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is so much easier than some other versions of Magic that I've seen.
Yeah, it does make it incredibly easy to work out what level you need in an arcana in order to perform a spell, and at that point which ones you then need to mix essentially to do some other spell which requires manipulation of, whether if you want to do true scrying, you're going to need space and time, because you want to look over time and space and just pick a point, a place and a time and go, I want to see what's happening there right now. You're going to need what's it going to be? You're mostly going to need time and space 2 in both cases, because it's ruling, which grants fuller control over the phenomena. Yeah, it's mostly that. Whereas if you want to prevent people scrying you in time and space, you're going to shield yourself. You're likely going to need time and space both at 2, because you'll be using the veiling, or is it veiling? Yeah, conceal things. Whereas shielding would be if you're trying to stop.
If you're trying to put something outside of time.
Yeah. Yes,
so that my sandwich doesn't go bad before I can eat it. It is now shielded from time.
That's a good use of time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's the way that spells work is that you're going to be rolling a dice pool, as always. That's going to be made up of what's the dice pool always made up of? It's been a while since I've looked at this myself, but it's the Arcana and your Gnosis rating, isn't it? Casting a spell. There we go.
And there are suggested rote skills for every spell that can affect how the spell goes off or appears, and adjust, like with anything with Chronicles of Darkness, if you can justify it through the system, you can, and your storyteller supports that, then you can use that for the role. So,
and I think what's important to point out at this point is that you're unlike another game which has the name Mage. You are never going to have to justify whether you're allowed to do that type of spell or how you do it based upon something called a paradigm. There's none of that. Okay, that is not in this. So I think that's a really important point to make. So where reality and the reason you can shape reality in that other game called Mage is because reality is a consensual reality, and the Mage is trying to force their view of their vision of what reality should be onto how everyone sees reality. In this, there is a objective reality which comes to us from the supernal realm, but we're the goldfish in the tank, and we only see the shadows of the ripples of the water. We don't see the wind, we don't see all the other things that influence that. And so we see a very filtered bit of that reality. And mages in this game are not using a paradigm to do magic. There is a true supernal form of magic that can be accessed, but to do it, it has to be invoked with symbolism so it can work into that simple reality. So if you wanted to open your scrying portal, you could use, and you're a free council mage, you use computers as your tool. So again, kind of like a virtual adept almost. You could use computer to do that as your tool, and that's the way you get the symbolism, because a computer is about connections, etc., etc. You're a free council mage, so it's it might be your preferred tool. So different mages have different preferred tools, and that essentially means you get the magic you want within the scope of the shell of reality. And I feel that's actually quite different to the other game called Mage. I don't know, how do you guys feel about how magic works in this, in that sense, in that metaphysical sense?
It's not that there aren't paradigms, it's that there's one paradigm, and everybody fights about how best to use that one paradigm.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. Once you get to, the end game, the end goal, if the Exarchs were kicked off their thrones, then the paradigm could be remade, perhaps. But that's if you get there, which is, beyond the scope of what the game's about.
Right.
And you can get into a really long discussion about how this version of Mage relates to the old one, when this was once going to be a direct sequel to the old one, and how the Exarchs were the true bastards. That's a fun discussion that I believe goes back to find a Darker Days episode from UK Games Expo at least 4 years ago of me talking to Dave Brookshaw about this, and it's a really fun one. Anyway, what else can we do with spells? There's what other fun things in how they work? We can, as I said, there's
you can
ropes.
screw them up. There's
You
paradigms.
can screw them up.
So,
and that's a whole bunch of fun stuff.
What happens when we screw up a spell? What's going on in the game with that?
So between our realm, the fallen world, and the supernal realm, where everything is real and true, there's like a filter called the abyss, and that's the glass tank that we're the goldfish within. So anytime that you try to do an effect that may be just pushing your abilities just a little more than you should, or maybe trying to overstep your bounds, well, then paradox is that abyss seeping in and kind of slapping you in the face. Or it could just send out a little monster from the abyss who just wants to be your friend. If you don't, you can do paradox in one of two ways. You can internalize it, where if you screw up, it just smacks you in the face real hard, real bad. You get hurt. There are worse things than being hurt. It could send a little friend to help you out. But the only way that this friend knows how to help you out, being a creature of the abyss, is to make all of your magic much harder to do. And that's how he shows his love. But he does love you, and that's what's important.
I kind of see it as when you write your true name on the watchtower that you're going to walk, that is your now access to the magic that watchtower, specific watchtower grants. And when you have a backlash big enough, like small stuff may not affect you too much, but if you have a backlash big enough, the abyss actually starts to scratch off your name from that tower, and you have a much harder time accessing the magic from that tower until you're able to repair that. So I that's kind of how I see it or interpret it for certain things.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the idea of like the scratching off, or it's almost like a man in the middle attack. Like you've got your communication line to the tower, and the abyss is like hello, and comes straight down to you because it's tapped in. And the abyss is horrible. Like so, it can directly harm you. It can make your magic more difficult, or it could make the spell that you're casting still happen, but differently in an abyssal, tainted, unreality sort of way. So
Oh yeah, it can infect your aura,
yeah,
which is like your magical signature on everything that you do. So instead of it being like, this is Chigg's grasping hand spell. Well, now it's the abyss's grasping hand spell, and when I grasp your hand, it hurts,
yeah,
kind of stuff. So
and like I'm just looking at the book. There is almost there's almost like 100. Is it? It's pretty much the best part of 80 pages worth of rotes, and each one of these spells has describes what level in the rote, what practice, because we talked about veiling or unveiling or unmaking. It talks about suggested rote skills, so rotes can be tied to skills, and those skills give you a bonus if it's a rote to do it. Reaching, which is to do with you can power up the spell based upon your arcana level. And then it also has the best bit, which makes these even more useful, is add this to do this. So if you're doing, say, teleportation, a classic space spell, you could add death or spirit, and by adding those in, if you've got 2 dots in them, it allows you to teleport not only to somewhere else, but into another realm. So that would allow you to teleport into the underworld, which is...
oh, you could go visit grandma.
yeah, which is great. There's a whole lot of thing as well with this. As we said about tools, there's the idea of yantras, which are mnemonics. They could be hand actions, etc. They could be things that are said that help the mage then visualize the spell, which is called an imago. And once you can visualize the spell, you can put it into action. So there's also things called mudras. They're related to specific rotes. And then, as we said, there's tools, and depending upon your tools that you use, those can have particular resonances with paths or with the magic you're doing. So, for instance, you can use each path has 5 tools. So, and these tools function in the way of coins, cups, mirrors, rods, or wands. So, for example, the adamantine arrow, a classic weapon would be like a sword, whereas a Mascos mage, it might be like a brutal, like spiked mace, things like that. There's a list here. Mascos. Oh no, Mascos was a whip or a curved sword. Okay, well there you go. That makes sense. Right, so we've talked about magic. What else happens in this game as mages? So we talked about vampire in a previous episode. What are some of the equivalent attributes or things that mages have that compared to vampires? Like, what happens when we start losing our mind?
Oh, well, one of the things is that your magic can start leaking. That's fun. Where you just sort of randomly start casting things that you didn't intend to, or you start bringing in and pulling magic in inopportune times, creating even more paradox. Yeah. That's always a fun thing.
And that's related to then the fact that mages don't have I don't want to say morality. What is it? They don't have integrity like in standard Chronicles of Darkness. They have wisdom.
Nope.
So mages have I guess the whole point is that mages, because they can change reality, have a skewed view of how to react to weird things, and they have skewed moralities. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would say that the like everything is just basically a morally gray area for them. There is no good or evil because of how they can manipulate everything.
Yeah. And so wisdom is more than just a sense of morality. It's about whether you should be even using magic to do certain things. So if you've got really high wisdom, you're not going to use magic to make a cup of coffee, because it's just pure hubris. It's just crazy to be using magic for such flippant little things when you could
Look,
be
I
using
don't
your
want my
ability
sandwich to go bad. I want to eat
exactly.
that sandwich, Chris.
You could be
don't
using
understand.
your magic for the benefit of people, for people in need, but you're just using it to do, you're using every little mote of magic just to do simple things like that have that have very little benefit to anyone other than yourself. So whereas obviously if you start doing really horrific things with magic, you're going to get your wisdom's going to diminish pretty quickly to quite a low level, at which point magicking up a sandwich is not going to diminish your wisdom, because the next thing that's going to diminish your wisdom is literally doing Full Metal Alchemist kind of level of horror of merging someone's pet with their daughter. We're talking that horrible. And that's actually a really good Full Metal Alchemist as an anime has some really good examples of where people capable of magic do some fucking hideous things. And perhaps the worst thing is literally just ripping people's souls out to form a philosopher's stone. And there's kind of a
spoilers.
Come on.
It's been long enough.
But you can kind of do that in this game, can't you? One things a mage can do, which allows them to create a place that has magical resonance for them, is to form a soul stone, which is where you take a piece of your soul and physically it becomes a physical thing, which if you leave in a place, you can use that place as a laboratory or temple for your magic. And then Gnosis is essentially just a measure of how wise, how wise your mage is, like how able they are to sense the world as it is and manipulate it.
I think it's a connection. It's a measure of your connection to the supernal realm.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to do with wisdom, which it should, because that's what Gnosis means. But wisdom is already a different stat.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. So that's pretty much. I think, is that the basics of Mage that we've covered there? Is there anything else we want to talk about that we haven't covered about the basics?
No. I'm good.
You can play people that aren't mages, so you can play. Are they still sleepers? I can't remember what the Mage the Awakening term for it is. But essentially, you're mortals that are aware of magic, who work for mages, but haven't yet awakened. So that's a bit like
they're
playing
called
a ghoul.
sleepers.
Yeah. So it's a bit like, or sleep. No, is it sleepwalkers?
Or sleepwalkers, yeah.
So it's a bit like playing a ghoul or the equivalent in any other game. But the thing is, I think with Mage, because it has a lot of scope for crossover, you could mostly link in other types of characters quite easily. So I easily see you using from Geist the Sin Eater the rules for a playable ghost, and having that as a friendly companion to a cabal of mages, especially if one of the mages is a Moros mage, or someone's at least capable of death magic, and so easing how the ghost can interact on a day-to-day basis with the rest of the cabal. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Well, sure, all of the various paths have some kind of spirit that they interact with or whatever. So yeah, it's real easy to work in any kind of spirit or any kind of non-splat supernatural entity, and any supernatural entity that is a splat that interacts with those spirits. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, it'd be. It'd be very interesting to see. And again, this is stuff that's covered in the Contagion Chronicle, so you can read up in that book. You can find out a bit about most probably how mages interact with the demons from Demon the Descent. In particular, that may time with, and we've said this before, how the Seers of the Throne interact with the angels of the God Machine and what they think of the God Machine. Is it part of the Exarch's plan, or is it some other, horrible, extra-dimensional, eldritch entity? That's something you can look into. But yeah, you can introduce pretty much anything supernatural entities wise as antagonists. We talked about Gotia. We talked about there's Akamoth, which are the spirits of the abyss. You've got spirits, you've got ghosts, you've got angels, you've got demons, you've got fae, you've got cryptids. Certainly are creatures I'm sure mages would be interested in, discovering and potentially experimenting on, or documenting and understanding and just talking to.
My adamantine arrow wants to go fight a Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly.
See if you can kick his butt. He's got those big feet. He's got reach.
And then there's also, I'm trying to think what else what other cool things are in here to do. That's mostly all the crossover kind of element. There's other bad guy, I'll say bad guy, like mages. So there are what are generally called the Mad, but we use that like that because essentially this is mages that their wisdom has fallen to zero, so their hubris is unleashed essentially, and they are just, as you say, as Crystal said, they're leaking magic and reshaping the world around them to their whims with zero care, because that's how they feel the world should look or is. Banishers are a interesting group. They are mages that don't want there to be magic, but not in the kind of like cutting us off from with the abyss. They just don't want to be themselves in a way. Then
Which
yeah,
doesn't make a lot of sense because you don't have to do magic. you can just not.
yeah, they're certainly. I think, but that's always a paradox, isn't it? If you've got power, what do you do with it? Even if you don't want it, you're always drawn to using it.
That's a you problem, buddy, not a me problem. That's
mostly the horror for them, and why that becomes the horror for other mages. There are lichers, which gets us to the Mage the Awakening version of the Tremere. So these are mages which are vampiric in nature, but they're still mages. They're just stealing people's souls. Oh no, they're reapers. Lichers are slightly different again, and just want to be immortal and not die. And then you've got Scelesti, who are mages who are actually wanting to use the abyss as their form of magic, which is quite terrifying because they're essentially wanting to, I guess, unravel the world and create an anti-world, and there are certain entities in the abyss that are anti-reality. So, what type of games would you want to run with this? I mean, how does this fit in with the ideas of personal horror or ancient evils or, etc.? Like, what kind of themes would you, if you were running this game, would you want to explore? Crystal?
I personally love your guardians are slowly being corrupted by the abyss. So the actual guardians of your tower are slowly being corrupted by the fact that you keep slinging paradox around, and now your magic is slowly becoming abyssal. And how that realization of your fuck ups are actually screwing up the whole tower for everybody, I think it would be really, really cool thing to do.
Chigg, what kind of mage chronicle would you run?
Crystal's is way more horror than mine, but I like the idea of an Acanthus Chronicle, where you have to run around fulfilling a bunch of oaths and bargains that you and your predecessors have made for powers. Like it could be anything from go put that quarter in that telephone booth to I don't know, raise this sunken continent because hey, we're supposed to meet there in 3 weeks, so you got 3 weeks to get this continent up for us to run around on. Good luck, and if not, we're gonna eat you.
I would mostly run a kind of like more spy kind of thriller. So I would definitely want the Scissor Throne to be quite a secretive, unseen enemy, not one that you can easily fight head on, and to have that level of paranoia where the Cabal really can only trust itself, even though obviously there are other Cabals of mages maybe where they are, but there's always that heightened level of distrust towards others. And as for what the end game of that would be, the Exarchs are horrible. Well, the Seers of the Throne are horrible, so there's mostly some over the top dramatic kind of event that they're going to create that for some reason helps further seal the cage. Mostly involving like thousands upon thousands of people dying or inadvertently doing it and causing some abyssal entity to come in that would have to contend with something like that.
I like it.
And yeah, we've said like what other things you can meet in this. I mean, as for other crossovers and cross kind of mixed parties of characters, if you're looking at running a mage game, which other kind of playable major monsters types would you think would fit really well to that game? I don't know if Deviant would be a good fit. Maybe.
I would like to do a play on the monster of the week, except for everyone has their own set characters, and one person each week, it's a different person, plays a different monster of the week from the other splats, and you have to try and figure out what it is. That's the game.
That's really fun.
So you go and get into trouble to try and figure out what type of trouble they bring to you and what powers they're using.
That's definitely very interesting. I think Monster of the Week also fits mages, kind of like their goal of understanding the world. So that's always good fun. And also, playing I mean, if you did that, you go, is it a vampire? And then it's like, no, I'm playing actually a Strix that's possessing someone. So it looks like, if it looks like a vampire, smells like a vampire, and walks like a vampire, it's mostly a Strix. Which would be horrifying because I don't think spirit magic works on them quite right, because they're not quite spirits. They are and they're not. There's something weird with that, so that would be a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hear me out. A deviant chronicle where every character's conspiracy that created them turns out to be a Guardians of the Veil mystery cult. Different cult for everyone. All Guardians of the Veil, because Guardians of the Veil are assholes. Remember, you heard it here first.
That's really shitty. Yeah. I think there's a really good crossover with Changeling the Lost, because I think the way both groups experience the world are very much like trying to find the magic within it.
I really like the idea of like the
Oh,
I think we lost Crystal.
yeah.
Okay, Prometheans. Oh, Crystal, are you back?
We lost you for a moment there.
Sorry.
What was your idea?
So my idea was where the mages keep trying to make deals with changelings, thinking that they're fair folk, and the changelings are just going along with it. Like, yeah, sure.
Sure, we'll do that for you.
Chick, you were gonna say?
Prometheans and groups of Moros.
Oh yeah,
because Prometheans are not really people, and they're kind of created through magical rituals, sort of alchemically. So they have that kind of death and alchemy thing going on for them. So it just seems like a natural fit.
I think mages versus some terrible mummy would be good.
Mummies always make good antagonists.
Yeah, and also the what are they called? Is it the Unnamed out of Mummy? What's the bad guy group in Mummy called? I can't remember now. But yeah, I mean the main gods of the duat anyway are a bunch of chthonic assholes as well that are just like using mummies for their own gain, and it's not a good setup at all. So mages versus mummies is good. I mean, demons are a really good one because you've got one group, because mages are rewriting reality when they do magic. Demons their abilities are like the back doors of reality. So the way they're able to pull off things is that they don't even have to change the code. They know they've got access to the to the operating system underneath that and can do other things. So there's a good interplay there, I think, of how two groups are changing the world around them. And I think there's mostly some really tough conversations between mages, especially Mastigos and demons, to do with bargains and taking people's souls away. Because I think a demon, given they can do soul stealing in that way, looks very similar to like a Tremere mage. So yeah, there's mostly a tough conversation to happen there. You could mostly have some fun with mages interacting with Crone, Circle of the Crone, or with Kruak and their magics, or even Ordo Drakel, because they're very experimental in their magics, almost alchemical in that nature. Geist is obviously a really good crossover. I think it's mostly the one group, like a Morris Mage and a Sin Eater, likely could have a really just generally good time. Like you could open up gateways to the underworld
a buddy
really
cop
easily.
movie.
Well, yeah, like kind of actually, yeah, because like the Sin Eater can see ghosts too much all the time. The Morris Mage can see ghosts through Mage Sight relatively easily. So all mages have Mage Sight of a certain degree based upon their arcana, so they can experience reality through those lenses. So yeah, like a Morris Mage with a Sin Eater is really interesting because the mage could pull off manipulations of death magic which go far and beyond what a Sin Eater can do. And I think the last thing that I think the worst case scenario is like what happens when a Morris meets one of the Caraboi, the lords of the domains in the underworld, because they are very like particular on the rules of how their domains work, and then this asshole turns up who's able to rewrite reality and can most probably, with a little bit of fate, go, oh, I like your rules, they're different. That would really be interesting to explore.
Generally, the mages act or interact with the supernal ideals of these realities, not the ones that the other splats.
Oh no, there's that's where their power comes from is the supernal ones, but because the mages are in the fallen world, they can access the underworld and go to the other levels of it. So, because of mind magic and mostly mixed with fate, a mage can walk the dreaming roads between people's dreams, their dream bastions. But I think it's quite difficult for a mage then to jump over it to work their way from the dream roads into the hedge, because those two realms rub up against each other. But a mage can go from dream realms into the kind of more gestalt mind realms that exist, the Teramos and the blah 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 and the other one, and almost all the way to the, what is it? It's not the primal wild. It's what's the one the beasts lurk in?
I thought it was the primal wild.
Yeah, but I thought that was the primal one.
But yeah, they can go. It's not because the primal wild's the supernal one. It's the something. Anyway, there's this realm which is where the beast things come from. So mages can go all the way there relatively easily, whereas a changeling can't make that jump because their soul is not set up in that way. So there's an interesting interplay about mages there and dreams with changelings. That makes the True Fae a fun antagonist for mages, because they follow weird rules. And what's the other thing that I was going to say that was a good antagonist? Werewolves and spirits, again, that's another playground of spirits to deal with. Which group of werewolves would get on with mages? I don't know.
I don't think
'Cause-
werewolf groups get on with anybody.
No, I
They're
don't
very
know.
isolationist.
I mean,
No.
would the antagonist groups of werewolf find anything in common with mages at all?
The
Mostly not.
pure?
The pure, nah.
No.
No.
But again,
No.
read up on Contagion Chronicle, because again, there's going to be expansive rundown of how these groups interact and get on and unlock further powers. To wrap up, there are some historical settings. Some of them are crossover. So there's the Dark Eras book. One in the first book, there's the Sundered World. So that's a crossover with werewolf, set in around the Balkans area in 5500 BCE with the dawn of civilization. So that's very strange magic and spirits running rampant, and I guess the cage reality is not quite set up yet. You've also got To the Strongest, which is 330 BCE, which deals with Alexander the Great and essentially Hellenistic mythic mage. And then another one, which is in, I guess, the second book to Dark Eras. I'm sure there's some other ones in there, but this one is the Light of the Sun, which is 1630 CE, and that deals with the Italian Renaissance and is a crossover between mage, demon, and deviant. So obviously, it's things to do with like Galileo and how the universe, solar system operates, and that's kind of, I guess, the crossover with demon there is because that idea that the stars, the moon, the sun are working on a celestial kind of rhythms and clockwork, and that works quite well with the idea of the god machine being this clockwork machine-like abyss, eldritch entity. How Deviant works into that, I don't know. I need to read that fully, but that could be really fun to run. Actually, Mage, Demon, and Deviant. That would be.
That would be
good
really
fun.
interesting. I should read through that.
Yeah, I mean, I really, I've run first edition Mage. I've not run second edition yet. I do want to run it, or at least play it. Again, it's one of these things. I want to run anything, but it's just like, do I have time? The answer is no. But I do want to play these things. So to finish up, we obviously, there was the roll for Ukraine that went really well. They hit their target donations. So now there is I guess we'll have a link in the show notes for this when it goes up on the podcast of where to send further donations to help out in the relief efforts for Ukraine. Recently, episodes out for Dark Days Radio. You can go listen to Dark Hammer, which went out on Friday, where we talk about the Champions of Death book. So
real fun
Playable
episode.
Undead. Hey,
Real fun episode. I
Yeah.
enjoyed listening to it.
So yeah, you can play. It's Age of Sigmar Soulbound, Warhammer RPG, where you can play as the undead and lots of different forms of undead in that game. So that's it's a really good book. You can also go back and listen to our Soulbound game, Reap and Sow, and previously, whatever. We've got episodes coming out. I think next week we should have out the podcast episode of the last episode of this, I think, which is our overview of Chronicles of Darkness in general, with you, Crystal, and Mike was on that one, and we'll have Werewolf next month, and we also still have a interview with Khaldun Heel, talking about Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition book Second Inquisition. Oh, no, Sabbat and Second Inquisition, and talking about his Storyteller Vault book, which was the Player's Handbook. I think it's Player's Guide or Player's Handbook to Sabbat. So, playable Sabbat. But his interpretation, because there's about 3 or 4 Sabbat books on the Storyteller Vault. So, that's his interpretation as, you can pick and choose which version of how you want to play the Sabbat, but he has his interpretation that's written up. Is there anything else I've missed or that's worth promoting?
Yeah. So this is the 10th anniversary for Onyx Path, and since we're doing the Signal Black, they are also doing every month. They are featuring one of their games, and this month is Cavaliers of Mars, which is like John Carpenter of Mars meets the Three Musketeers. It's a fantastic game system. I played a stream of it on Friday, and it's up on the Onyx Path Twitch,
Cool.
and it will be up on the YouTube. And it was the first time I actually got to play. I've run it a lot, but I've never actually got to play it. And it has being one of my top 10 favorite games.
I own it,
so
I've never played it.
it's on sale right now through Drive-Thru RPG.
Oh,
March sale right now currently, and it is like really cheap for the PDF, and it's also on sale for the print on demand.
okay. So, sorry, I think we got a pause in the thing. So it's on sale right now on Drive-Thru RPG, isn't it? And on print on
Yes,
demand. Yeah.
and IPR too.
Okay,
Indie
cool.
Press Revolution. If you don't know what
Yeah.
IPR is, sorry.
So that means you get the premium, like trad print run version of it
Mhm,
rather than
yep.
just POD. Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Right. I think that is about it then. If there's nothing else to promote, plug, or say. Right, so if you have any feedback, email us, darkdaysradio@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us at Darker Days Radio on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, obviously, if you're watching this right now, YouTube, and of course we have a Discord where you can chat about this and any other games that we are interested in. Right, well that's it. Thank you two for helping me out with this, because Mage, there's a lot, and I don't we really only touched the very tip of the iceberg on this. We'll have to return to it at some point. Like, more than likely we'll come back to this and do, spellcasting, how it's done, and go through the mechanics of it, because that's potentially like the most critical bit of Mage and would require some dedicated time to looking at. But otherwise, I think that's it for now. So we will say goodbye, and we will see you again soon in a month's time for more Signal Black, where we'll be looking at Werewolf the Forsaken. So goodbye and take care.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been an episode of Darker Days Radio. Special thanks to Occam's Laser for the intro, outro, and new bumper music from their hit album, 9 Circles. Check out the rest of their work at occamslaser.bandcamp.com.